2025 is officially here at the close, and one of the most debated and talked about topics regarding any and everything anime has to be the action, has to be the animation, it has to be the fight scenes. And that's what we're here to discuss today, the top 10 animated fights of 2025 according to Black Uchiha, right? And I specifically am going to word it like that because there might be an entry or two here that the technicals might hop in the comment section and be like, that's not an anime actually. Well, tough luck, because in 2025 I decided to pick out the top 10 animated fights that stood out to me. Now, there's gonna be some fights that probably some of y'all might be like, oh, how did this not make the top 10? Or why isn't this in the top 10? Now, for some fights, probably just because I didn't see it. And others, it probably just didn't check off all of the marks that I had in the categories that allowed these other shows to make the top 10. Now, there are 4 things I'm basing this ranking list off of. Obviously, the first one being art and animation. It gotta look pretty. It has to be visually appealing. Second would be OST. The music, is it really getting me in the moment? Am I hyped? Am I sad? Am I excited? You know what I'm saying? 3, the dialogue. Basically, you can't be saying a bunch of bullshit that'll have me pause in the episode and be like, did they really just say that? Or that sounds very cringe, or giving me secondhand embarrassment with your words. You can't do that. Now, suspension of disbelief is a real thing you have to incorporate when watching anime, when watching any type of science fiction or fiction, art, media, or material. However, dialogue as a writer is something that's very key in drawing in your audience and keeping them within the moment. So if the dialogue isn't hitting or seems very childish or not up to par, you probably ain't cracking the list. And then last but not least, the tone. The tone set in the middle of this battle. What are the stakes? What weighs on for the winner and weighs on for the loser? How am I invested into this? If you can set the perfect tone for me in the fight, as well as give me great art and animation, great OSTs, and acceptable dialogue from the characters, I would have no personal reason to not put you inside of my top 10. Now, for that being said, that lets you know why the top 3 are the top 3. Specifically, they excel in all 4 of those categories, and why some of these honorable mentions and others that you probably won't even see me mention did not make the list completely and fully. So we're just gonna start off with the honorable mentions just to run through them really quickly. For these, they didn't necessarily make the list, but they did stand out to me at the time of watching. Basically, when I was watching it, it was something that had me pause the episode and like, yeah, this is actually gas. So our first honorable mention would be Raphtalia versus the Emperor, Rising of the Shield Hero Season 4. That fight was actually amazing. Now, I know Rising of the Shield Hero has had its ups and downs. However, by the time I got to this fight, there was one point throughout the sequence where Raphtalia is constantly pulling out different sword style techniques, and I'm just like, damn, this fight is actually very good. Not even very good. I think that might have been the best fight in the entirety of Season 4. So shout out to Rising of the Shield Hero. Now, next we got Goku versus Goma in Dragon Ball Daima. We understand everybody went crazy when we saw Super Saiyan 4 Goku for the first time. Need I say more? This one cracked the honorable mentions and almost cracked the top 10 purely off of hype and nostalgia. Everybody loves Dragon Ball. Similarly so with Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta versus the Dragon Ball Guardian from the Demon World from Dragon Ball Daima. Those fights were absolutely amazing, and seeing these new forms for both Goku and both Vegeta in something that we only got to see in respective GT eras or one-off eras was actually amazing, and I loved it. Now, next we got Regulus versus Reinhard, Amelia, and Subaru in ReZero. Now, this fight was absolutely amazing, and I love ReZero and I hate ReZero. It's kind of like a love-hate relationship with me, because there's certain seasons I'm just like, bro, are we still here, or are we still dealing with this plot point? And then other seasons that remind me why not only I keep up with the show, but also why I love it. And this fight is one of those moments. Definitely one of the MVPs in that fight being Amelia, mastering her ice powers, because I remember starting off on Season 1, I'm like, okay, Shorty got some crazy powers. She seems like she can be OP. And then moving on throughout the show, I'm like, Amelia's not really doing nothing. She held her own in this fight. She held her own in the latest season, and also ReZero will be coming back in 2026 for his latest season. Now, with all of that being said, we are cracking the top 10. After the honorable mentions, at number 10, we have Denji versus Reze, Chainsaw Man movie Reze art. This one was absolutely amazing, visually appealing, and all in all, just ranking the movie in general, it gave me Studio Ghibli vibes. First half, second half, straight up Studio Mappa action-packed cinema, bro. Like, they blended the best of both worlds in that movie, and the sole reason why this is number 10 is because my personal emotional investment within Chainsaw Man as a series is not that high up there. However, it was high enough for me to appreciate the complexities and parallels between both Rizzy and Denji, and how Denji is struggling and basically just coming up as a man and dealing with the problems around him. Now at number 9, also from ReZero, the latest season, Garfield versus Korgan. Now this guy Garfield was introduced in the anime when he first came across Subaru, and he had that OP feel. He was one of the main antagonists and main obstacles standing in Subaru's way when he was trying to escape from that forest in the previous season. And now here we see when he's facing Korgan, it's one of those things where the character has to basically stand and face themselves, not only themselves but also the opponent in front of them, and they're overcoming these walls slowly but surely, and then by the end of the battle they're a whole entire new person. All of that being said, the animation and art was straight up fire. The OST had me feeling for all the feels. Like, Garfield really is out here trying to make it from the bottom. The story from his sister and his mom is extremely heartfelt. Everything is heart-touching. And then just seeing him come out on top in that fight, it just gives you that well-deserved feel. And like I said, the art animation was fire. The OST was fire. The dialogue, mwah, chef kiss, and the tone was definitely set in that battle. Now, moving on to number 8. Now this is where a lot of people are like, it's not an anime. Well, it's my list, guys. We have Mark versus Conquest from Invincible Season 3. Prior to this fight, Mark literally just came from fighting an entire army of variants of himself, an entire army of Viltrumites capable of destroying the world. And after finally overcoming that obstacle, here we have Conquest floating down, fulfilling the promise the Viltrumites made to Mark seasons ago, that he has to prepare Earth to be conquered. And now, after trying to deal with the aftermath of an army of him destroying the planet, now a full-blown Viltrumite, the strongest in its army aside from the leader, pulls up and is like, yeah, it's time to fight. And Conquest was begging and pleading that Mark didn't want to actually go with the Viltrumites because he needed something to punch on. And this fight was amazing from start to end, like extremely brutal, extremely hype, and it gave you the feel of what is gonna happen by the end of this fight. How is Mark gonna make his way out of this? Even if he makes his way out of this, nothing will ever be the same. And as we've seen, nothing is going to be the same for this guy Mark. So I'm looking forward to more Invincible greatness, and I'm definitely looking forward to more possible battles between Viltrumites like Mark versus Conquest. And Adam Eve came through at the end of that battle and just made it like a cherry on top of an already gourmet dish we were being served up. Now at number 7, we have from To Be Hero X Season 1, for me personally, anime of the year, by the way, 2025, Loli versus Nice. Now, one of the main reasons this fight is even ranked up so high, because by the start of this fight, you see Nice pull up, and we already understand the history of Nice up until this point by the time when you're watching the anime, and we're like, yeah, everybody in that cave is fucked. Everybody. And Loli, understanding she's this show's Iron Man, and has to basically save her best friend and her dad from the perfect hero being in Nice. And as she's running and dodging attacks and protecting, the animation is picking up, the stakes are picking up, and Nice is fighting with more and more bloodlust until it gets to a point where Loli has to make a stand and simply box out with this man. And she does that, and eventually gets to a point where Nice is about to kill everybody in the cave, to Loli is actually putting the fucking pause on this guy, Nice, and it turns up, and the Rage Amp Loli was just another beautiful addition to the fight. And all in all, one of the main reasons why this fight is so high is because I never expected it to be so good. The moment was unexpected, so that plays heavily into the tone, right? Because now we see the stakes were definitely there, and I can't kid you not, To Be Hero X has also implemented that element that's so famous in JJK, where it's like, if these two people are fighting, I'm scared because I know the show isn't scared to kill off characters. Loli versus Life was definitely one of those ones. Now at number 6, we have the man, the myth, the aura farming legend himself, Jin Woo versus this guy Carlagon, solo leveling, right? Now, this was one of the most hyped fights in season 2. I remember when it first dropped, everybody was sharing the sequence when this guy Igris, right, one of Jin Woo's main shadow soldiers, had heads rolling throughout this fight. And it was also one of the fights where Jin Woo's just playing the back the entire time, and the party was going through trials and errors and tribulations, and then finally Jin Woo says, all right, I think I let them suffer enough. I'm gonna go ahead and step in. And everybody, when I say everybody, was extremely shocked and jaw dropped. They had the Heroes Association, Hunters Association coming in there, basically escorting Jin Woo out like, hey, y'all keep everything y'all saw in here to yourselves, right? That's how OP this guy was. But even besides the OPness, the fight itself was amazing, because this guy Carlagon was confused and perplexed as to how an army could even match his army of undead, knowing this guy Jin Woo is the king of the undead, right, in this Shadow Warriors. So Jin Woo versus Carlagon is one of those fights, and personally one of my favorite fights in season 2. I know it's not in everybody's top 3, which is actually crazy to say, because solo leveling season 2 had damn near at least a double-digit amount of perfect fights, but for me, this one stood out for sure. Now we are officially cracking into that top 5 territory, and here it got a little iffy for me, so I would say the next 2, maybe 3, you can interchange them, but this is what I went to settle with, right? So at number 5, we got Okuran versus Evil Eye GG, Dandadan season 2. Now this fight was it. Dandadan is one of those animes where you're gonna ask someone, it's like, what is this anime even about? And it's like, you just gotta watch it, man. It's about, I guess, life. The life of the characters we are seeing within the show. They're going through some weird shit. We're watching some weird shit, but at the end of the day, we have to see how everything plays out. Dandadan has one of the most realistic and appealing character dialogues, character moments, OSTs, and they use it to perfectly blend into the story to keep you, you know what I'm saying, invested, and also to keep you, you know, intrigued in terms of what will possibly happen next, because of how unorthodox and random the anime actually is. Now, when Okuran decided to box Gigi within the episode itself, I was like, well, what the fuck is he trying to do right now? But that fight went from 0 to 100 real quick, and I tell y'all, I absolutely adored everything about that visually appealing fight. Like, visually appealing and visually wise, Dandadan could damn near be number 1 on this list. Season 2 was that great and that beautiful. And when Okuran decides to actually face the Evil Eye, you can feel it that he wants to not only make a point to himself, but also make a point to Momo, who being in his love interest, to let her know that he can protect her if the time calls for it in any situation that he would need to, because he wants to stand up for whatever he believes. And it's just beautiful all around. And then the emotional turmoil that comes from Gigi being suffered from wanting to help the Evil Eye, but also seeing how his friends are slowly viewing him as time progresses. Everything about this battle, everything about this fight was done extremely well and gave justice to all characters involved. Now at number 4, we got another solo leveling entry, and I know y'all were probably tweaking out like, how do you not? Yes, we got my guy Jin Woo versus the Ant King Baru himself. Now, I always find it funny. I will just say this quickly, right? Whenever there's a show, a fiction, or a piece of media, and there's an extraterrestrial being that's coming to Earth and basically seeking out the king of humans, understandably so, knowing that is Jesus Christ himself, but they always come to seek out the quote-unquote king of the humans, as if our societal norms or cultural norms still follow these type of rankings, as opposed to it being more so where it varies area by area, culture by culture, not necessarily as a species. But this nigga Baru, he boxed with the S rank hunters, he boxed with the A rank hunters, he boxed with the best of the best from Korea to Japan to America, and this nigga looked at Jin Woo and said he must be the king of all humans, right? The dialogue was definitely there, but when I tell you the action sequence was extremely over the top, like PTSD of season 1, One Punch Man, right? You know what I'm saying? No pun intended, because we know season 3 is airing currently, but hey, This guy Jinwoo beat the brakes off of the fucking Ant King after he came through, running through all of the S-rank hunters. Us, as the fan base and the hunters alike, were staring, jaw dropped, and perplexed at the amount of moves and aura farming this guy Jinwoo decided to whip out. Amazing 10 out of 10 fight, and it's crazy. I'm saying all of this, and it's not even in my top 3. Now, we are cracking into the top 3 territory, and this is where everything is really getting gritty, right? Now, in top 3, respectively so, I thought about it for a while, and I think for the very least, these 3 not only deserve to be where they're at, but they're gonna stay where they're at upon any type of recollection or any type of mishap where I like, oh, maybe I forgot about that fight. Nah, these 3 for sure, hands down, are the top 3 fights in 2025. At number 3, Demon Slayer, Tanjiro and Giyu versus this nigga Akaza. Now, if y'all went to theaters, if y'all watched it online, if y'all went to the 7 Seas to watch it, however, it still doesn't take away from the fact that this fight from beginning to finish was straight up gas. Now, on the surface level, action and animation, yes, 1 of 1, probably not even being touched by anything else on this list, pause, but the thing that really does it for me is definitely the tone set and the character dialogue. Now, I mean that to say, because I know people complain like, oh, Akaza's backstory was so long, it was in the middle of the... Akaza's backstory made me go from, hey, we need our get back from Rengoku to, if anybody look at Akaza the wrong way, they gotta deal with me. That's how serious and deep it was. This nigga Akaza really connected with the audience, and he really connected with the fan base. Everybody that I know in real life that's seen that movie went from hating Akaza to basically loving the man, right? And on top of that, bro, the fight itself, this guy lost his head and his body was like, nah, we are still boxing. Like, it's time to put it into these demon slaying niggas. He's like, I am tired of the fade. He had to fade himself mentally and physically just to stop fading the ops, bro. Like, this fight was 1 of 1. Visually appealing, and I can't wait till we get some more Demon Slayer content because I'm looking forward to it. But definitely Tanjiro and Giyu versus Akaza had to crack the top 10, and respectfully so, within my top 3. Now at number 2, I know you guys are thinking like, what else could there even be? 2 fights. We just went over Tanjiro and Giyu versus Akaza and Jinwoo versus Baru, 2 of the most popular animes right now in Solo Leveling Demon Slayer. I will say this, these next 2 fights are from different shows, and also not only are they different shows from each other, but they're not either from Solo Leveling or Demon Slayer. And at number 2, which I think a lot of people might be surprised because other fights from this show did not even make my honorable mentions, but like I said earlier, guys, I had to take into account everything, and also it's like some things weren't gonna make the list. But at number 2, we have this guy, Bakugo versus All For One. And I will tell you this why, because 1, I haven't felt that type of feeling watching an anime in an extremely long time. And only these top 2 spots gave me that feeling. And the most recent being with Bakugo versus All For One, because when this episode dropped and Bakugo declared himself the final boss, Bakugo got up out of there and just blasted his way through the sky in between the teardrops. All For One is looking at this nigga like, Nani? And I'm looking at the screen like, Nani? I remember screaming out loud like, this might be the greatest anime episode of all time that I am witnessing before my eyes. And my dog, rightfully so, sitting, wagging his tail, looking at me confused. I'm just like, bro, you don't understand the greatness I'm witnessing right now on the screen. I had to calm myself down because that fight was so amazing. And Bakugo, as a character, when I tell you you are 1 of 1, they gave you justice. Your character arc from snotty brat to confused, irritated, and jealous brat to a full-on through and through hero who's willing to not only sacrifice himself for the win, but to know what it takes to go above and beyond and protect and save everyone around him. Bakugo and Deku had this dilemma where they each had a side or a half of All Might. Deku wanted to save people, Bakugo wanted to win. All Might was like, nigga, I'm saving niggas and I'm winning. That's what I do. And they each took half of those traits, and throughout the story, Deku had to learn, yes, you save people, you should save people, but you need to fight to win, to come out on top. And Bakugo needed to understand, yes, nigga, we fight fighting to come out on top. You don't play to lose, but also you need to protect the people that are around you. And slowly in each sequence, we see how Bakugo starts to take into consideration of his aerial effect, his attack damage, and implementing new moves and ways to use his explosion quirk without messing up shit that's around him, and everything comes into full effect versus All For One. This guy is moving. When I tell y'all, he's moving in between the raindrops falling in the fucking sky. I paused the show and I just couldn't watch it no more. I was like, yeah, he got it. And at that point, I knew no matter how good Deku versus Shigaraki would be, that this fight was going to be my favorite fight in the entire anime. And it is. Bakugo versus All For One is my favorite fight in the entire anime. This nigga Bakugo literally defeated a main villain on his own, bro. And it's like at this point, this is going to turn into a rant for why Bakugo versus All For One is so great. So at number 2, Bakugo versus All For One, My Hero Academia. Amazing, amazing. And now, last but not least, the cream of the crop, Mano a Mano, the one of one, the number 1 fight of the year for Black Uchiha 3, the number 1 animated fight, the best of all action sequences within the last 12 months, 365 days. At number 1, from the show, To Be Hero X Season 1, we have Queen versus Boa. If you know, you know. When I say this gave us pure 10 minutes of straight up action, dialogue, and character tone, it is like an understatement to tell you. Because I'm watching this episode, and similar like I said with Bakugo versus All For One, I had to stop and recollect my thoughts to get back into reality and say, like, this might be the greatest fight I've seen in my life. And that's exactly what I said when I watched this. I was like, yeah, this might be the greatest fight that I've seen in my entire life. But the kicker is, like I said, the fight was about at least 11 to 10 minutes long. It was after the 4-minute mark where I realized, yeah, these girls are not letting up. They're boxing. But by the time Queen was like, okay, no more defending, we're fighting to fight, the fight went from 100 to 1,000. And by the end of the fight, it was already at 1,000,000. Queen versus Boa is hands down some of the best anime action sequence I have seen in my entire life. And also the thing that really pushes it up into that category and level for me is the tone and the dialogue. We enter into this fight understanding that Queen has a mission. And not only does she have a mission, but a very important day is basically creeping up on her the next day. In Boa, she was previously known as the number 1 hero in the world. And she's trying to get that status back, and she wants to prove herself by defeating the up-and-coming and arguably the most popular hero currently, being in Queen. And when I tell you that Boa really turned up, and throughout this fight, we also understand why Boa was considered the number 1 hero at one point, because Boa was not letting up. And there was a few moments throughout that fight where I was like, yeah, Queen is about to get sent to the ICU. And similarly so, I was like, okay, so now Boa is really about to die this fight. This fight was extremely pure 10 minutes of greatness, pure 10 minutes of cinema. And you feel for both characters because they're both fighting for something with a lot of weight on their chest. Queen is fighting to make a point, to prove herself, and also to show that she did all this hard work and she's not gonna out of nowhere be considered a golden child that was handed or given everything. Fuck no, she's been putting in work since day one, so don't try to treat her like that. And Boa has been putting in work since day one, and all of a sudden everything is getting taken from her and the light is being shown on Queen. So now she wants to say like, yo, I'm not gonna let no pretty princess Nepo baby come out here and take my number 1 spot. Fuck the tournament, we finna duke it out right here in this parking lot. It was a pure absolute cinema of an episode. Queen versus Boa is just greatness, and I think personally it deserves to be the number 1 fight of the year. I've seen other people place it as possible best fight of the year. Me, I'm not gonna have possible in front of it. It is the best fight of the year, hands down, without a shadow of a doubt. The best visually, artistically, the best OST. Well, that's arguable, but the best dialogue for sure. And the tone is absolutely through the roof. So 2025 best fights of the year. Let me know how you guys feel about the list. Let me know if there's any fights on the list that you guys personally love, any fights left out that you may have wanted to see me mention or talk about, or why you think my list is either trash or gas. This is officially Anime Daily episode 5, the last last episode and last video of the year. It's your boy Black Uchiha 3, long face skinny body. Let me know how y'all feel about it. Love, peace, and prosperity to all. Happy New Year's and happy times. Holla at your boy, holla at y'all. Black Uchiha out. Yes, sir. Ski.